So I want to talk about why I'm honestly not too worried about the Packers' current wide receiver situation. And I think if you were to look at the Packers right now, and our first game was tomorrow, I would honestly be worried. But right now we're sitting in the middle of the offseason. The season honestly hasn't been done for that long. We still have about 5.5 months, a little over 5 months until the NFL season actually begins. And in the past couple days, we heard Brian Gutekunst talk. We also heard Matt LaFleur talk. If you guys had a chance to go and watch their little press conferences they did, they have them on the Packers YouTube channel, like official YouTube channel. But when I watched both of their interviews, they both made it very clear that they know that there is a hole at wide receiver. Clearly, obviously, with Davante Adams, leaving the Packers, MVS also leaving the Packers, going to sign with the Kansas City Chiefs, losing our best receiver in Davante Adams, and then losing our deep threat speed guy who can just break open the offense in Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And so they were very clear that they know there's a hole there, and there are lots of different ways that they said that they can fill that. And I think when we take a look at the Packers the past few seasons, there's always been this consensus idea that the Packers need to make a move at wide receiver, even though we had, Davante Adams and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. The Packers should have given Rodgers even more weapons. And back at that time, I think the Packers were like, no, we like the guys we have. And that was sort of the things that they said. And I think, they were pretty good there with the previous weapons we had. But now they're making it clear, like, they know we have holes here. And so I think when we look at the fact that there are 5.5 months, we know the Packers are going to make moves to bolster this wide receiver unit. When we take a look at the draft being only 1 month away, Brian Gutekunst said he's not afraid to take multiple players from one position, and so I would not be shocked to see him draft 2 wide receivers in the first 2 rounds. If not in the first 2 rounds, at least one in the first 2 rounds and then another later. I really think the Packers are going to do that because why would they not with the holes they have? And then if there is some kind of free agent out there that they want to pick up, Gutekunst said if the right thing falls to them, they will make a move. So I have no doubt in my mind that the Packers are thinking through every potential situation, every potential trade that could happen. And we never know how late it could happen because last year we traded for Randall Cobb. What was it, like late July? I think it was late July we traded for Randall Cobb. And so we still have so much time, and the Packers don't have to come in and immediately make a move. And I also feel like the more time goes by, maybe some receivers out there who no one is wanting to pay up on, they can get them for even cheaper. And so I definitely think that we will see the Packers make lots of moves when it comes to wide receivers. And here's a quote from LaFleur earlier today. This is from Rob Demovsky's article on ESPN. Certainly, if you look at our roster right now, we definitely need to get some speed in that room, LaFleur said Tuesday at the NFL owners meeting in Palm Beach, Florida. We need a legit guy that can take off the top of coverage. We lost a guy that was pretty good at doing that. And so I do think the Packers need 2 different kind of wide receivers to come in here. We need the guy like in the Marquez Valdes-Scantling type of guy who has that ability to stretch the defense, has that incredible speed, that deep threat I think really opens up the offense. And I think there are multiple guys in the draft who can do that, and I'll make more videos in the future on different wide receivers, things like that, once we get a little bit closer to the draft. But a guy like Jameson Williams, who even though he did have an injury and that is sort of a worry there, I've heard that he is progressing pretty well and could be ready earlier in the season. And he's definitely a guy who has the insane breakaway speed that would, fill that Marquez Valdes-Scantling role, could even be better than him there. And so I think there are lots of different options the Packers could use. Chris Olave, other guys. There's Christian Watson, who maybe there are some question marks on him, but he's an insane athlete. He's tall, he's fast. I mean, there's so many guys. And then I think to have another guy, maybe a guy who already has more experience, a free agent kind of type, a potential, trade that could happen. We never know what trades could go down. I never would have thought Davante would have been traded. And so I definitely think there's other wide receivers who aren't necessarily off limits, even though it could seem that way. And so I think if we get, as Matt LaFleur said, we're missing that speed now with Marquez Valdes-Scantling gone, and we're missing our, big perimeter outside receiver, which I think the Packers could, draft a guy like Treylon Burks. They could draft a guy like Drake London. There's so many different options for the Packers, and that's why I'm not too worried, because I know the Packers are going to make moves. And as I said, if they started right now, the game started tomorrow, I'd be a little worried. But on that note, let's say, for example, the Packers did absolutely nothing until the season started. Let's say they didn't use one wide receiver draft pick in the entire draft. Let's say they didn't add a wide receiver. Let's say they didn't even trade for a wide receiver. That would honestly shock me. That would shock me very much. But I was thinking before I made this video, if we look back at the game where the Packers played against the Cardinals last season, it was the Rasul Douglas interception game, which really made his name just, get talked about more and more. That was a game where Davante Adams was out with COVID. Allen Lazard was also out with COVID, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling was injured. So we were without Davante, MVS, and even Allen Lazard as well. And if you don't remember that game, the Packers win that game 24-21. And if we take a look here at the Packers' receiving stats, they weren't great, but we had Aaron Jones, 7 receptions, 51 yards. Robert Tonyan, 3 receptions, 49 yards. Juwan Winfrey, Josiah DeGuara, And then Randall Cobb, 3 receptions, 15 yards, and he actually had 2 touchdowns in that game. And the Packers ran for 151 yards in that game. So if the Packers did absolutely nothing, I still think that they would have a very, very good offense. We have, I'd say, that one of the better backfields, top 3, top 5 backfield in the NFL, with 2, I'd say, number 1 backs in Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. And so that clearly is going to help us. We still have Allen Lazard, Robert Tonyan, Randall Cobb. Hopefully Amari Rodgers can take some steps forward. So I'm not saying that I think that would be a good situation for the Packers to be in, but they showed us, like, Aaron Rodgers can get it done. He's Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't necessarily need a ton of huge, wide receiver options to get the job done. They got the job done there versus the Cardinals. And of course, too, with Davante Adams being traded, Brian Gutekunst said the Packers may not have been able to bring back both Devondre Campbell and Rasul Douglas. So even though right now our wide receiver core is greatly reduced, I'd say our defense is going to be much better because we're basically bringing back the same defense. It's Joe Barry's second year being the defensive coordinator, and that Packers group, throughout the entire season, had the time to mesh and mold together and get better and better. And I think that they did get better as the season went on, especially in that final playoff game. We saw just how good that defense can be. And so we are bringing back that same defense who has the experience together, who has the time, building off of each other, and Joe Barry, now having the comfortability coming into his second season. And I think we saw it with Matt LaFleur after his first year. The Packers took a huge step forward, and I see no reason why this Packers defense won't do the same. And that's without adding any, other kind of defensive players, any guys in the draft. So even if the Packers right now are looking a little weak on offense, I still think there's some firepower there, and I think this Packers defense is going to be that much more ready coming into next season. So honestly, as a Packers fan right now, I'm not worried. I know the Packers are going to do something to fill the holes that Davante Adams and Marcus Valdes-Scantling left, and even though they might not fill them exactly as we had last year, I'm not honestly worried whatsoever about the Packers offense or the Packers wide receiver situation, because we have a guy named Aaron Rodgers and one of the better backfields in the NFL. So let me know what your thoughts are on this entire thing in the comments down below. And I will be, doing more videos on potential draft picks, things like that coming up in the future. So let me know what kind of guys, which guys you want the Packers to draft in the draft when it comes to wide receiver, other positions, guys you think the Packers should target in a trade, free agents you guys want to pick up, because I see lots of your comments about potential guys. So feel free to show that down below in the comments. But thank you guys so much for watching as always. I do appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.